Welcome to this presentation on the grading process within Volusia County Schools. This message is for all stakeholders regarding both the language of grading and the process in our online gradebook. The gradebook is part of what is called VIMS, the Volusia Instructional Management System. Before beginning, we wish to thank the countless educators, students, and parents who have participated in the development of the procedures and guidelines presented in this message. Let us first look at a parent and teacher as they discuss student grades.
Hi, Mrs. Smith. Thank you for coming and meeting with me to talk about Williams grades today. I know the new Pinnacle grading system can be a little complex and confusing, but I hope that I can answer your questions today a little bit, and I hope that we can work through this together.
Okay, well, thank you for taking the time to see me. I really want to help William do his best in your class. So I need to make sure that I completely understand his grades, where do they come from, how are you calculating them?
And I hope that we can talk through that today, and just stop me if you have any questions.
Okay.
I first want to explain the three categories of grading. There's three different grades that we take in the Pinnacle gradebook system. There's first diagnostic, formative, and then summative. I'm going to first talk about the diagnostic. At the beginning of a unit, so recently we just started studying the water cycle in our class, in Williams' class. So the diagnostic is what teachers give to students before the unit is actually taught or before the skill is taught. So the students are given a diagnostic test, and then the teachers use the test to determine what the students know and what they don't know. And when the grade is put in the Pinnacle gradebook, it's only weighted at 0%. because we're just using it to determine what the students know and what they don't know because the unit hasn't been taught yet. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense. Mm-hmm.
Okay. The second category is formative. Now, formative is usually referred to as assessment for learning, and that usually takes place throughout the process of studying a particular skill or learning a particular content knowledge. While we were learning the water cycle, I was giving formative grades that could be in the form of classwork or short quizzes, and it could even be informal observation. Now, what's important about formative grades is that since it is used for classwork, if a student doesn't complete classwork, it can reflect poorly in their final grade. So because formatives are used for learning to help teachers determine what students are learning and what they still have yet to learn, it's weighted as 40% in the gradebook.
Okay, so that would be like the things that he's doing in class that I see in his notebook.
Correct. The last category that we use for grades is summative. Now, where formative is assessment for learning, summative is assessment of learning. So diagnostic is used at the beginning of a unit of study, formatives are used throughout the unit of study, and then a summative grade is given, or a summative assessment is given at the end of a unit of study, or at the end of the teaching of a skill, or some content area of knowledge. So for example, a summative grade could be used for a paper and pencil test, question and answer test. Sometimes they look like a standardized test also, a bubble form. But they could also be in other forms also, such as a project or even a performance. And because summatives are the assessment of learning to determine if a student has mastered a particular skill or particular area of content, it's weighted as 60% in the gradebook.
Okay, so I did see William's water cycle test. So that would be a summative grade.
Yes, it is a summative grade because it was given at the end of the unit of study to determine what knowledge he's mastered. And usually most of the summatives that I give in my class are written assessments, but like I said before, it could also be a bubble test, or it could be a project, or it could be even a performance.
Okay, so let me make sure I completely understand this. Williams grades are based on 3 different types of work that he does in your class. The first one is diagnostic, which that is where you're just giving him to see how much he already knows about the topic or whatever that you're going to teach. And that's 0% of his grade, but you may put it in the grade book just so that I can see and so that you know how he's done.
Correct.
Or how much he
knows.
knows.
What he knows and what he doesn't know.
Okay. And then there's formative, and the formative is the work that he is doing in class about what he's learning, and he's doing this work as he is learning it.
Yes.
And that's 40% of his grade.
Yes.
Okay, and then the final one is the summative, and that is where he is going to basically prove what he's learned, and so you can determine that he has learned everything that he's supposed to know, and that's going to count as 60% of his grade.
Correct.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that helps me a lot.
It helps. Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you.
You're welcome.
The next part of grading we will share is the process for calculating the grade at the end of the quarter or 9 weeks. We will continue to refer to this grade as the final grade. Let's drop in on another parent-teacher conference.
I just don't understand how Cheryl ended up with this grade in your class. She seems to be doing all her work. Can you help explain it to me?
Well, I think it'll help if we review Cheryl's work in the gradebook by categories. Are you familiar with the grading categories?
If I remember correctly, there are 3 that make up her final grade?
That's correct. If we look here, Cheryl did very well on the diagnostic tests that I gave at the beginning of the school year. These are given to see how much she already knew. Unfortunately, though, these are just put into the gradebook so we can see how she did. They don't impact her final grade. They count 0%.
Oh, so when I saw those high grades in the beginning, they only counted 0% of her final grade?
Yeah, that's a common misunderstanding, which is why I'm really glad that we're here talking about this today. Now let's go ahead and move on to the next category of grades called formatives. We can see here that most of the time Cheryl turned in and did very well on these assignments. And when she did that, she did very well on the tests. Tests fall into the summative category. But we can also see that when Cheryl didn't complete her formative assignments, she did poorly on the test. This relationship between work and tests is sometimes a difficult concept for students to understand.
It seems to make sense to me that if Cheryl does the work she needs to do to learn the information, she should do well on the test. I'll need to talk to her about why she hasn't been doing this.
Absolutely, that would be great. As you can see from the grade book, it really has impacted her grade recently. I want to take the time now to show you how this all comes together in the grade book before we move on any further. The final grade is calculated by what we call total points per category. It's a simple math process, but if you don't understand it, it can become misleading. Grades are entered into the grade book by total points. So for example, if I give an assignment that's worth 25 points and a student scores 20 on it, it'll show up in the grade book as 20 points earned out of a possible 25 points. Each grade is entered this way throughout the quarter, but remember, it's added into one of the 3 categories. So Cheryl's final grade is made up of a total points in each category according to the weight of the category.
And when you say weights, you mean 0% for diagnostic, 40% for formative, and 60% for summative?
Yes, that's correct. So if we look here at Cheryl's grades, we see the final grade was a B. Let me show you the math that was used to determine that. This process allows for the final grade Cheryl earned to represent the work she did and what she learned this quarter.
Now I understand, and I think I can help Cheryl understand more too. It really shows the importance of taking the time to do your work prior to the test. Thank you for your time.
No problem, thank you. And remember, you can always access this online, and together we can help Cheryl do her best.
Let's review what we have presented. The next few pictures will show us the grading scales used at each grade level to determine the final grade. We wish to thank everyone who participated in the development of these grading procedures. On behalf of Volusia County Schools, we hope this presentation has helped you understand the student grading process. For more information, please visit our website, myvolusiaschools.org.